Well, hello there, it's Ina here and welcome to my art room. Today's video is part 2 of my shipwreck assemblage, and if you saw part 1, you know that I started out with this old wall lamp. By the end of the video, my project looked like this, and I will continue to add a few more bits and pieces before I start painting. Here I am adding a broken pair of earrings just for a bit of extra texture. Then I use some simple string to go around the broken mast and so on. Now, if you have not seen part 1, please do so. I will add the link to the video below in my description box. And for you to understand how I got to this point, you really need all the details that are included in part 1. So after adding the string or the rope, I also took pieces of chain, a skinny one for the stern here. I draped it all over the old banister, and I will add more detailing until I'm ready to start painting. Now, whenever I do my assemblages, I mainly glue with E6000 as it holds pretty much any type of material. But it did give me a hard time when I tried to glue down those dollar store plant pieces here. I thought it would be nice to have some underwater foliage, but I had to hold on to every piece until it was pretty much dry. So I'm not showing you that whole process. Here is a nice anchor. It's a charm I add to the side of the boat. You will see it later. And now some tiny little seashells and bits and pieces that came actually out of the ocean. One more step I want to take before painting is to add some texture to the very flat bits and pieces like the sticks and some of the plastic components. I want to have that little fuzzy look that you find when algae is growing on things under the water. So I use some sawdust and I mix it with my texture paste until I have a nice consistency, and then I add it to all the places that need it just on those two ship parts. This will really help with the overall look and will make it seem more old and grungy. So the texture paste is applied and it needs to dry really well before I start painting. Now, if you're familiar with my assemblages, you know that I like to start with covering everything in black because it unifies all the different colors of materials I'm using. And I alternate between using black gesso and black spray paint. They both have their pros and cons. The gesso covers everything very deeply. It gives a very matte, easy to paint on surface, but it's hard to reach really tight corners. And also for big projects like this, I would use up quite a bit of gesso and it's a bit costly. So I used my spray paint instead. It's cheaper, it's much faster, it gets into all the tight corners. The only thing is that even if the product says matte, it always leaves just a little bit of a shine, so here and there. But to remedy that, I use my rusty paste. It has a bit of grit to it, it's very matte, and it will help to cover any shiny spots. Plus it gives me a nice starter color that will complement anything else I will add on top. So I will do quite a bit of coloring, layering different mediums. I will also glue down a few more bits and pieces that I didn't want to have covered by the black, but the process will be very easy to follow. So it's a good time to turn you over to some music. Like always, any mediums I will be using or anything you may need explaining will be in the captions, but I will talk to you towards the end of the video and give you a really good look at all the details. Please enjoy the process and I will talk to you in just a wee bit. So after detailing this little toy box, I was pretty much done. There was a few more last minute details of color and few little odds and ends, but here is the completed piece, and I have to say I'm pleased that it came pretty close to what I had imagined. So I was able to assemble the bow and the stern of the broken ship with the middle nearly gone, but you can see the mast and some of the stuff on the ocean floor. There's sand. I cleaned up the edge, and I also cleaned underneath by adding a piece of craft paper. I always like a nice tidy finish. And now to the front piece here. It swivels. It actually comes completely off like you saw. And in turning it, you get a really nice look to the inside. There is the cargo, the barrel, there is the skull. And yes, I added a pillar here because I needed a bit more support. As you remember, I cut out a piece of metal right there. So now I'm pointing out some of the metal pieces I added towards the end. And yes, they have a slightly different color, but that brings them out a bit more. So there are some seahorses, some little fish, and I'm very pleased with the way the round edge here in the front came out. That was kind of tricky. Now the wraparound stitches that were part of the back basket inspired my stitching here in the front. I think it looks cool, but it also strengthened the whole structure a bit. And now to the stern and the deck. Again, there are some charms. There's a steering wheel, a crab, a fish, those kind of things. And you can see the banister. It's pretty broken, but there are a few remnants of it. Some of the poles are still there, but have fallen over. Lots of texture. Here on the side is the window that broke off. There are more seahorses, and of course my anchor that moves. So lots of texture, lots of broken wood, a bit of a mess, but I imagine that's how a shipwreck would look. Here in the back, I used a big metal crown. I like the shape here in the back, and I added a couple more things to fill up the basket, including a little magnet in the middle, and you will see in a moment what that's for. First, to the other side, again there's the window, again pretty messy, and you have another view into the inside with cargo. There's actually two levels of barrels and pots and boxes, and then of course the ocean floor. Again, I added lots of details, including the skull right here in the middle. There are seashells, there are barrels, there are rocks, the broken wood from the ship. I also added the little charms of sea stars and shells, just here and there. And then here in the front, I added the little octopus. He was just too cute and fit perfectly into this little spot. So this was a look at the main things of the boat, but of course there is still the little treasure box. Now after the texture dried, I colored it just the same way I did the rest of the boat. It has a magnet underneath, and here on the inside, of course, it has a treasure. So there's a gold coin, some gold chain, there are some jewels taken from little earring studs, and it closes nicely, and there's a magnet down here as well, and so that's where it can live, and it's pretty strong, doesn't fall off. So that's my first movable part. And then for a second movable bit, I took a tiny little bell. I think most of these old-fashioned ships had bells. I added a metal yoke and a bit of chain, and it will live here in the back. There is again a magnet that holds it in place, and the rest of the chain can just wrap around the banister. So this piece can be taken off easily and played with. Same for the treasure box, and those are definitely interchangeable too. Now, creating this type of junk assemblage of a shipwreck has been on my mind for quite a while, so I had a lot of fun creating this, and I really hope that you enjoyed the process as well. Please do watch both parts so you don't miss any details that went into creating this. As you saw, I used mostly junk bits and pieces, and I always like to recycle things for my art. Now, many people ask me if I have a huge collection of junk laying around around, and really I don't. I have 3 medium boxes, one for wood, one for plastic, one for metal. Some of the tiny components, especially if I have plenty of them, live in little drawers, those little handyman drawers. But otherwise I keep it down because my art room is just not so big. Of course, I also don't work on a very large scale. So I hope this project was inspiring for you. Maybe you want to give assemblage art a try. Just collect some junk, use a bit of imagination and lots of glue. Thank you so much for coming. I hope you come and see me soon again. I will be back latest next Friday. Bye bye for now.